This college skeptic asked this very difficult question about the resurrection. If you couldn't rely on the Bible, could you believe in the resurrection of Jesus? Frank Turk answers this beautifully, so make sure to watch to the end so you know how to respond to this question. Let's get right into it.
Trust the Bible and ancient texts. What could make you believe in the resurrection?
If you don't, well, I guess my question would be, why wouldn't you trust these ancient texts if you evaluate them and you come to the conclusion they're historically reliable? Why would this be invented? That kind of thing. Go ahead.
You don't come to the conclusion that they're historically reliable.
Okay, my question would be, why do you think they're not?
Because they were written 100, 200 years later.
Later than what?
Later than when Jesus was crucified.
Where did you come up with those dates?
Google.
Huh?
I just looked it up. It was like 100. It was written or published. The Hebrew Bible was published around 100 AC. He was killed in 30 AC. The life expectancy is probably shorter then. And instead it was published, so that's like 7 years. They were already 30 or 40, so they're either old and senile or dead. So,
run those dates by me again.
It was 100 when the Hebrew Bible was published about, because we don't actually know. And then 30 when he was
the
killed.
Hebrew Bible, you mean the Old Testament?
No, it said, well, how would they publish the Old Testament after he died?
No, we have Old Testament documents prior to Jesus.
Okay.
We have the Septuagint, which was 250 BC. So that's 250 years prior to Jesus. We have the whole, we have Dead Sea Scrolls. We have a scroll, the entire book of Isaiah from like 150 BC. So the Old Testament's written before Jesus. You get that, right?
Yeah, but when was it published? Do you know?
What do you mean published?
Well,
yeah, of course they published the entire Bible way after. I think it was maybe like 300 years after, like the entire book of the Bible, where they all came together and put these in. But that doesn't mean each individual book of the Bible was written before. And we think like the closest ones were in like 50 AD, which is way closer than what they think. It's only like 10, 20 years difference from when Jesus was alive, and they would have had credible sources to talk to. They're alive sources. They're talking just because the person who wrote it wasn't there, but he had witnesses that he was able to interview and talk to that were actually there, and I'm sure he's going to get into a great point here.
Yeah, I can show you what it said. Like it said, it was.
If it's on the internet, it's got to be true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when was the Bible published?
Okay. First of all, the documents we call the New Testament were written anywhere between, say, 40 AD and I believe 70 AD. Okay? Jesus was crucified in 33 AD. Okay? Now, the sources inside those documents go all the way back to the event of the resurrection itself. In fact, the earliest evidence for the resurrection is recorded in a passage we call 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 to 8, where Paul says, "What I received of first importance I pass on to you." So Paul is writing in about 55 AD to the church at Corinth in Greece, and he's quoting a section that was memorized that even atheistic scholars agree goes all the way back near 33 AD. And that section talks about who Jesus appeared to after he was resurrected. So despite the fact that Paul is writing it in 55 AD, about 22 years after the resurrection event, the data that Paul is writing down goes all the way back to the event itself. It would be like today if you wanted to write a history of, say, 9/11, which is 22 years ago. And you went and interviewed eyewitnesses. Some of them are in this room. And they told you what happened. Would it matter that you wrote it? 22 witnesses. Some of them are in this room. And they told you what happened. Would it matter that you wrote it 22 years later? Or would the source from the event itself be authoritative?
You could lose it in translation from what they saw memorized for 20 years and then you publish.
You could misremember things, but there's something known as an impact event. An impact event is something you don't forget. You might forget what you had for breakfast this morning, but you won't forget something that happened 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago if you're old enough. Now, you're not. There may be a couple of us in here that are this old. Let me ask a question. Only a few of you are going to raise your hand. How many people in here can remember where you were and what you were doing November 22nd, 1963? Raise your hand and hold it up. You see these people with their hands up? These people are very old. Okay? November 22nd, 1963 is my earliest memory. I was 2 years old and 2 days. And I'm standing in the living room in our home in Wanamassett, New Jersey, and my mother is sitting on an ottoman in front of a black and white TV, weeping uncontrollably. Mommy, what's the matter? They killed the president. They killed the president. President Kennedy assassinated that day. I can still see in my mind right now my mother when she was 26 years old, sitting on that ottoman. She's 86 today, but I can see her when she was 26. I remember what I said to her. And I remember what she said to me. And that was 60 years ago. Where were you when the second plane hit the tower? You remember where you were and what you were doing. Why? Because it was an impact event. Now, if Jesus rose from the dead, do you think that would have been an impact event?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, like I remember exactly where I was when my dad passed away. I know exactly where I was when my grandpa passed away. Like all these impact events I'm never gonna forget. I'm gonna remember the larger details about Jesus resurrecting and coming back to life. And it's not that hard to like be like, oh, that's so long ago to remember, but impact events you're going to remember if someone resurrected. Let's continue to watch.
Yeah. Do you think they would have forgotten about it? Do you think they would have any trouble remembering what he said and did?
Possibly.
Probably not, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So just like you can interview people here today about 9/11 and get an accurate account, so could the New Testament writers, and many of them were eyewitnesses themselves. So I don't know where you're reading this kind of thing, but the New Testament documents are written within the lifetime of the eyewitnesses, by eyewitnesses or people that knew eyewitnesses. For example, Luke, who was a doctor and interviewed eyewitnesses, actually puts forth a very accurate account of what he said he saw, and you can verify this by looking at archaeological remains and geographic remains and topography from the Gospel of Luke and also the book of Acts. In fact, there's 84 details in the book of Acts alone that have been proven to be eyewitness data just from chapter 13 to chapter 28, the end of the book. Luke was actually traveling with Paul. He's an eyewitness of that period. So you're right. You know, if this was 100 or 200 years later, we might be skeptical of it. But when we have eyewitnesses and eyewitness data that can be confirmed, that's telling us that this really could be true. Let me say one other thing. We just did a podcast on this 2 days ago. It's the podcast up right now, and I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. There have been 7 people associated with the crucifixion of Jesus found in archaeology. 7 of them, including Jesus himself. Jesus, Caiaphas, Simon of Cyrene, Pilate, Herod, Peter, and one other I can't remember right now. 7 names from the 1st century have been found in the dirt that are mentioned in the crucifixion account of Jesus. All told, there are more than 30 names in the New Testament that have been found in archaeology and other writings from the time. This is not an invented story.
Can I?
Go ahead.
But that, just because their names are there doesn't mean he rose from the dead.
No, it doesn't. But it does show that they're telling historical facts. And so if people can be trusted on where you can verify them, you probably ought to trust them where you can't. Now, if Jesus really did rise from the dead, would you follow him?
Yeah. I knew you were going to say you were going to ask this earlier.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Okay. Well,
Like,
how much reading have you really done on this?
not a ton.
Okay, so think about it just
Yeah, read.
just for a second.
That's so good. And I really hope that you guys really think about it and really understand that Jesus really did die on the cross so that you can be saved. Yeah, so many people have encountered Jesus, and so many archaeological digs and finds that prove that these people in the Bible really did exist, so they're not just made up. And since they're not made up, they wrote about certain things, and why would they be lying? Especially if they knew that it was false. If they knew that it was false, would they really be willing to give up their life? Would they be willing to die for something that they know is a lie? If I was lying about something forever, like let's just say I stole and I didn't want to tell the truth because it would get me in trouble. But they're like, well, if you don't tell the truth about this, we're going to kill you. I would tell the truth really fast. I'd be like, fine, I did it, don't kill me. But if I know that it's the truth about something, and it's something that I really, really believe in, and that obviously, like, he's God and he's something worthwhile living for, I'm not going to give up, even if I'm going to die, because the disciples know that this kingdom that they were promised is not of this world. It is way beyond this. So that's why they're going to literally give up their life. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Please like this video if you haven't, and subscribe. It means the world to me. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. And also, you might like this video here. Peace.